The fantasy football playoffs are inching closer and closer, and holding on to every single edge matters now more than ever. So today, we are going to help you hold on to the edge of beating your league mates to the waiver wire, beating them to players who can add value to your roster before they actually become valuable. I'm Lucas Wencl here with Fantasy Pros, bringing you my top 5 waiver wire stashes ahead of Week 12 and next week's waiver run as well. Before we dive on into that list of players, though, we've got a special deal going on for you all right now. Unlock a month of Betting Pros Premium for free. Download the Betting Pros app today and use promo code FP1month. Get access to tools like the Same Game Parlay tool, the Prop Bet Analyzer, and the Prize Picks Prop Bet Cheat Sheet. Don't miss out. Try it 100% free for 1 month now, available both on iOS and Android. Starting off our list this week is Washington Commanders running back Chris Rodriguez Jr., who is rostered in 31% of leagues. Outside of being our highest rostered player of the week and going just slightly above my 30% threshold, there are 2 big reasons why I want to start with Chris Rodriguez. First and foremost, he's on bye, so it's definitely worth checking if someone in your league dropped him because of that. Their loss is going to end up being your gain. Secondly, Chris Rodriguez should be rostered in way more than 31% of leagues flat out. Last week when I brought up Chris Rodriguez, I had mentioned the remarks Coach Speak Index had noted from Cliff Kingsbury, just a few weeks back. He had quoted, "We have to take what's blocked." I thought that was one thing that Chris Rodriguez did a really nice job of when he came in. When we have to take what's blocked, and then the big plays will come. Every time we have asked him to step up, he has played at a high level. Chris Rodriguez did exactly that against the Miami Dolphins. He took 15 carries for 79 yards, averaging 5.27 yards per carry in that outing. Icing on the cake would have been if he had scored a touchdown, since he had scored in 3 of his 4 previous matchups. But what we now know for sure is that Chris Rodriguez is becoming the top option in the Washington Commanders run game. Now, I am not promising you bell cow Chris Rodriguez here, right? He's getting essentially 0 opportunity in the passing game. His lone reception against Miami was his first reception of the season. But looking at these other Washington Commanders running backs as well, it's not exactly inspiring. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he did get 10 touches against Miami in Madrid, but that accumulated for only 33 total yards while averaging only 2.8 yards per carry. Jeremy McNichols got 6 touches. He put together 29 yards, but again, nothing all that inspiring that's going to take away from Chris Rodriguez. If we are all reading the numbers correctly here, and Washington continues deploying their backfield in a similar fashion out of the bye week, C-Rod should be rostered in, again, well above 31% of leagues, especially while giving you 4 finishes inside of the top 36 running backs in the last 5 weeks. If he maintains lead back duties after the bye week here, he gets 2 juicy matchups in the fantasy playoffs as well against the Giants and Cowboys. The second player on our list this week is Chicago Bears wide receiver Luther Burden, who is rostered in only 20% of leagues. Look, y'all, we don't have that much longer until the Luther Burden breakout is here, because there were a few big things that happened against the Minnesota Vikings in Week 11. Big thing number 1 is that Luther Burden has now played at least 44% of the snaps in back-to-back games. Now, I understand that doesn't seem like a very high percentage, but the bigger thing to note is that Olamide Zaccheaus saw his snap share dip all the way down to 13% this last week. For context, he hadn't logged a single game lower than 44% of the snaps this year. Burden has now won the slot job over Olamide Zaccheaus, and as Nathan Yonke points out over at PFF, Luther Burden played in 100% of the Bears' 3 wide receiver sets this last week. The other thing he notes is that the Bears ran a season-low 21 plays in 3 wide receiver sets against the Vikings, so we could see even more of Luther Burden in future weeks as that rate returns more to normal as it's been on the season. Big thing number 2 is that Luther Burden actually outproduced DJ Moore in this game. Now, I don't want to put a colossal amount of weight into it, but it should mean something that Burden drew 5 targets to DJ Moore's 3 and earned a target on 13% more of his routes despite only playing 8 less snaps than DJ Moore in this game. I mentioned last week that actually the long-term vision here for the Chicago Bears might be that Luther Burden takes over the DJ Moore role in this offense, and I'm not promising that to you rest of season, but Ben Johnson clearly realizes Luther Burden is too talented to keep off the football field at this point. So this is an opportunity you're not going to be able to take advantage of much longer, and do not wait until the next big game happens for Luther Burden to add him, because you need to beat your league mates to the punch rest of season. You already know Luther Burden has a ton of upside, so go get him added right now. Next up on our list is Philadelphia Eagles running back Tank Bigsby, who is rostered in 15% of leagues. 'Tis the season of rostering handcuffed running backs, because this is the time of year where the wear and tear of the NFL season starts to kick in, and we see these backup running backs and good offenses become relevant for stretches at a time. As of right now, Saquon Barkley is in good health, don't get me wrong, and he trails only Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and James Cook in rush attempts this year. The Eagles are also bottom 5 in neutral pass rate and are still running the ball at the second highest rate in the league. I say all of that not to pitch you standalone value for Tank Bigsby, but if something were to happen to Saquon Barkley, it's going to be Tank Bigsby taking over a majority of the rushing attempts in this offense. Don't get me wrong, Will Shipley would certainly be involved too. I'm not saying Tank Bigsby will get 18 to 20 rush attempts per game, but Bigsby has been Philadelphia's most efficient runner in their last 4 contests since he started becoming more involved. He's averaging 9.1 yards per carry in his last 4 contests. Again, let me reiterate, I am not promising you standalone value with Tank Bigsby here, but because we're talking about players to stash, high-value handcuff players like Brian Robinson, Tyler Algier, and now even Emmanuel Wilson this past week are all rostered in well over 30% of leagues, so it's time to do the same for Tank Bigsby as well as the season starts to wind down. The 4th player on our list this week is Miami Dolphins running back Ollie Gordon, who is rostered in 14% of leagues. The Dolphins are also on bye in week 12, but the bye weeks are often the most lethal times to strike, right? Because your league mates think they can be sneaky. No one's paying attention to the players on bye on the waiver wire. But this is your time to strike on Ollie Gordon. We got a slight scare against Washington with 2 minutes left, right? Achane suffered a back injury, but thankfully he was able to come back into the game. With a bye week to rest, let the bruises heal a bit. He'll be fine for week 13, obviously. But what if he wasn't? What if he hadn't been able to return at the end of the game with that back injury? I obviously never want to wish injury upon a player, but it's not uncommon, unfortunately, to fear that with Devon Achane, which is why Ollie Gordon needs to be rostered as one of these high-value handcuff players. As I always say, I am not in the business of making empty promises to you all, but in games where Ollie Gordon has been given 9 or more carries this year, he's finished with at least 9.8 PPR fantasy points and as the running back 27 or better on the week. All 3 of those games, they have been boosted by a touchdown as well. I'm not going to hide that, obviously, but that's also Ollie Gordon's game at 6'1", 227 pounds. The schedule coming up for Miami running backs is relatively soft as well. They get the Saints and the Jets right out of the bye, and then they get the Bengals and Bucks in week 16 and 17 as well. Again, I don't want to overpromise standalone value here, but Ollie Gordon is one of the better stashes at running back you can make this week. The last player on our list this week is New York Jets wide receiver John Metchie III, who is rostered in only 3% of leagues. At this point, I do fear it's becoming a trend that I provide you all a groan-inducing player of the week on a disgusting offense in the NFL. This is really for all of you out there playing in the deepest of leagues, because I want to make sure there's at least one player for you all to consider. As we are all aware, the Jets place Garrett Wilson on IR, and I'll say maybe the scary part out loud for Garrett Wilson managers. I wouldn't be surprised whatsoever if they just decide to shut him down for the season. Not that a wide receiver 1 for the Jets, not named Garrett Wilson, possesses a ton of value here, but John Metchie logged the most snaps and ran the second most routes of all Jets wide receivers against the Patriots last week. He hauled in 3 of his targets, all 3 of his targets for 45 yards. It even gave you a touchdown on top of it. I wouldn't be surprised if this week, maybe we see John Metchie get a slight uptick in targets, putting him on the waiver wire radar next week as like a deep desperation ad. Again, if you're in a deep league here and you need a wide receiver ad, I really think you could do worse than John Metchie as his role potentially increases in the New York Jets offense. Alrighty, that is it. That is all I've got for you today. My top 5 waiver wire stashes ahead of week 12 and next week's waiver run as well. Go sprint to the waiver wire right now. Make sure none of these guys are floating out there in your leagues. They're all rostered, except for Chris Rodriguez, in 30% or less of leagues. If you want to include Chris Rodriguez, 31% or less of leagues. Before I sign off here, though, remember, we have got a special deal going on for you all right now. Unlock a month of Betting Pros Premium for 100% free. Download the Betting Pros app today and use promo code FP1month. Get access to tools like the same game parlay tool, the prop bet analyzer, and the Prize Picks prop bet cheat sheet. Don't miss out. Try it 100% free for 1 month now, available both on iOS and Android.